Welcome to the Modcast. A little bit different this evening. I am here with my buddy Skip.
Hey.
He's a Subaru aficionado and parts finder extraordinaire. He has a love for blah-by Subarus in particular. Isn't that right?
That I do. I've personally owned two. My first one was a non-turbo, and I made it an STI clone, and then the motor threw a rod, and I upgraded to a WRX, which was my most current car, Scarlet.
I had a little bit of this kind of a weird shorts video that I made. I was trying something a little out there, I guess, with the style of video I was doing, but we never actually get to finish filming your Brembo swap over.
Yeah, so the Brembo swap over, the car was on the road maybe a week after that, and the car ended up getting totaled in a rear-end collision.
Unfortunately, we live in a state where that is considered your fault. I don't think it's really fair. That is kind of the standard here. But that being said, it is a shame that Scarlett has been totaled. Like, it made me sad personally to find out that happened, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was a real bad day.
So at one point in time, you had to clean out your headliner, didn't you?
I did. So I bought my car for $1,000 in the middle of a snowstorm. Drove it home. I ended up taking everything out of it except for the headliner because I found evidence of rodents, and cleaned everything out, put it all back together, and drove it in its stock form for a little while. Then I ended up going full bolt-ons. It pushed 304 on the dyno, and every time it got warm out, it still kind of smelled like rodents. So the next step was to pull my headliner. I pulled down my headliner, and there was a nest about the size of 2 footballs.
I think you came to me and you said, my car just dripped on me. And I was like, what the fuck do you mean your car just dripped on you? And you're like, there is literal black shit coming out of my fucking headliner.
It got so cold.
We had like a cold snap.
And I guess there was a dead rodent in my headliner in the nest. It froze, and then all of its juices, when it thawed, bled through my headliner. So I had to extract my headliner and essentially fully restore it and make it safe to be in the car again.
Would it be difficult to secure the right headliner for that car, given its features?
It's really hard because I had a limited, which comes with the heated seats and the sunroof, and they still make the non-sunroof headliner, but the sunroof headliner has since been discontinued, and everyone's is in really bad shape.
So you, in essence, basically completely saved that headliner, like that.
Yeah, because if I hadn't saved the headliner, I would have had to just go bare metal roof for a while.
And I don't think that's a really desirable trait for a street car, for sure.
Yeah.
So it made 304. What kind of wheels did you put it on?
It had some Vors TR4s on it. Yeah, they were 17 by 9s plus 30, I believe.
Plus 30 offset.
Yeah.
I definitely have some photos of it somewhere. Let me look for those. But while I do that, tell me what got you into modifying things from, obviously a young age, I would imagine you wanted to do it.
It was really a combination between my dad and my buddy Andrew's dad, Dave, who was my boss at one point, and he drives this really cool supercharged FRS.
Yeah, that's come up a couple of times on the show. It's a nasty car.
It's a really cool car. And before that, my dad had a Blob-Eye swapped 05 WRX wagon, as well as a non-turbo Legacy GT wagon. Oh, yeah, there it is. Pull it right off Google.
Custom offset.
Happens to be my car.
Custom wheel offset. All right, let's... All right, so that is your car.
Yep, and there are actually a few photos in there of different angles of the car.
That's pretty cool.
I was actually paying a ticket in that at Hampton Beach. That's at the Hampton Beach courthouse. I was in there paying a ticket.
That's awesome.
I came out and took a picture of my car.
That's really cool. Look how nice that car was, though. I mean, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it was sitting under a tree when I bought it. The previous owner had parked it because of an O2 sensor. Which, if you don't know what an O2 sensor, it's basically a sensor that meters how much oxygen's in the exhaust. And it costs maybe $100.
Yeah.
And it's not hard to replace. He parked the car for 2 years because of it. So I essentially had to strip the car down, clean it up, and put it all back together.
Right.
But I was lucky. The car did drive. It did run. So I drove it home. And I found an STI wing. Maybe same day.
Same day.
Same day. I found one paint matched, and the guy was willing to meet me halfway, so I was like, sure.
Let's do it.
I went and dropped the car off at home, and I drove my Ranger, because at the time I had a 4.0 Ranger.
Was it a 5-speed?
It wasn't.
It wasn't a 5-speed.
It wasn't a 5-speed. We were in the process of building a 5-speed 4.0 swapped one.
Okay.
But the machine shop who we had work on it, who I won't name, cracked the water jets on it, and we couldn't afford a new block.
Oh,
so we had to sell the project.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
I mean, it's still a possibility, though. Maybe when you go to your new destination, you'll find a truck thing that you want to do, too.
Yeah, I don't know. I am moving to Florida very soon here, and since I totaled my car, I really don't have a project at the moment, and I need to figure out what my next project's going to be.
Yeah, it'd be pretty cool if you were to pull down, I mean, even just a clean version of what you had before, like, because yours had some rust and stuff that you were fighting with and repairing and stuff.
It was constant battle having to restore rust.
Yeah.
Almost every time I worked on the car, just because you catch up with it, and then it snows again. They use salt, and it kills the cars.
It kills it every single time. It's so aggressive on the chassis, and like, kind of the way I see it is, if you don't have the tires on your car to deal with the weather that you live in, you probably shouldn't be out driving. And like, that is regardless of whether your boss says you have to be at work or whatever, but like, you at least need to be able to handle what you're driving in the weather that you're presented with.
That's what causes a lot of accidents up here in the winter, is people driving when they really shouldn't be driving.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's unfortunate. I've noticed a lot more of them have been happening as of late, the past couple of years. Our major highways are just flooded with insane amounts of accidents. State troopers have died from being hit, and people just disrespecting the move over law and everything like that. It's really unfortunate. But yeah, I mean, I hope Florida is at least better about things like that.
I hope so, yeah. I haven't really read too much into their legislation. I'm kind of just going to figure out when I get there.
Yeah,
but
sure. Well, you get some time, you know?
I have time, exactly.
Yeah, that's good. But yeah, so Scarlett, we did some Brembos on her. What was that swap from?
It was a 05 STI, an 07 STI limited Brembo swap. So the difference between the regular Brembos and the 07 limiteds are the 07 limiteds are black.
Gotcha.
With white writing.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
So it's just a different color scheme.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, obviously, black and white on this car clearly is the theme.
It made sense over the gold and red.
Yep. And the STI interior was pretty sweet.
Yeah. 2 years ago, coming back up from Wicked Big Meat, which is a collection of like-minded owners like myself,
Big Subi place.
who enjoy Subarus. It's a Subaru-only event that
it's not
happens once a
small.
year.
It is not small.
It's not small. It happens in quite different places. I know it happens down at Daytona Beach, which is the one I'm going to be attending.
That's awesome.
This upcoming year. I'm going to be missing this year's because I'm not moving in time.
Yeah.
But I, on the way back from Wicked Big Meat, I scored some seats off some guy at Wicked Big Meat for $150. I just had to pick them up from his house on the way home.
That's badass.
So I picked him up on the way home. I threw him in the back, and I had seats sticking out the window 3.5 hours home. But I put them in when I got home.
What do those normally go for?
Usually they're anywhere from $400 to $700 depending on condition.
Dude, that's a steal and a half.
Yeah, $150 front
Yeah.
and rear, and
Installable upon arrival as well.
off the same guy, I actually scored my rare OEM carbon interior pieces. Not all of them, just the ones he had, but he had the window switches and most of the center console ones. He $100.
$100 to dress up the interior. And,
Yeah.
and it made it just gave it like a step higher look.
Yeah.
You know?
And I did end up finding the other pieces I need from a shop in Canada that just happened to have them off a car they had finished parting out. And I ordered them. All in all, I spent $400 or $500, and it's usually like $800 to $1,200 for a set.
That's bananas. Like, all things considered, you were able to accomplish a shit ton with that car before, obviously.
I was.
Met its bad end.
I pulled the motor and had it from stock to fully dressed, full bolt-ons in 3 days, because I only had 3 days. We
Right,
had a 3-day
exactly.
weekend, and I was like, it needs to happen.
You have to do it. I'm doing all of this now.
I put a ported and polished VF48 on it, 1050X injectors with a 345 fuel pump, STI manifold, ported throttle body, and a couple other goodies like an external.
Yep.
But I pulled it out in the middle of a 3-day weekend, and of course on the second day it starts to pour. So I had to set up a tent around the car because it was already half taken apart.
Oh, no.
And luckily we had this little one-car shed, but of course there was the driveway, and then there was dirt. Then there was the shed. So we had to literally manhandle the engine stand through the mud.
Oh, that is determination, though. I mean,
We
it was going
had to
in.
make it happen.
It was
had
going
to make
in.
it happen.
Yep. Makes sense. That's a crazy story, too. Like, you'll never forget that.
Yeah.
Like, that experience is so, like, deeply ingrained, just having done that before. Like, everything else, especially if it's simpler to do but might be considered generally hard, will just parallel in comparison. You'll be like, hey, I can do this shit.
Actually, I have photos of that day that I can send to the
send
screen.
it to the email, and we'll check it out. But, yeah, I mean, you started off because a lot of influence from your dad, obviously. It hooked you, clearly.
Yeah.
So, if you had to do anything different with that car, not like on top of what you did, but maybe something that you would have changed instead of something else, what would you have done?
I would have done the 14 PSI spring instead of the 20 PSI spring.
Okay. Why was that?
So, I had the 20 PSI spring on a stock block EJ205,
Okay.
which they're not typically known to hold power. But it was the spring that was in it, and I wasn't pulling the wastegate again because if you know GD Subarus, it's right on the firewall behind the turbo, and it's a pain in the ass to get to.
Right, exactly.
So we just tuned it on wastegate pressure instead of using the boost controller. And so it stayed in boost for so long, and it would overboost a decent amount just because it's going off of wastegate pressure alone.
You know, that's the other thing that sucks is I didn't get to go for a ride in this thing and like actually experience it in its full form.
You didn't get to experience the full form of the car.
Yeah, that would have been really cool. Obviously, you haven't experienced Stitch yet either.
I have not driven in Stitch yet.
So he's not in his full form, obviously. You see
Obviously.
how many parts I've collected.
There's a storage unit and a half that we actually just added more stuff to the other day.
Yep, and I've got more stuff coming. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. I want my car to be safe, reliable, a little bit quicker, just nice again. Because those cars, even though their price point wasn't that high, like, they were nice. They were new at one point in time. And I think that it would be kind of cool to bring one back and keep it on the road because, I mean, hell, I have faith in the product. I just think some of the things that they did as engineers maybe compromised its integrity a little bit. So if I can undo those things, it would be a lot better than what maybe people think they really are. So we get to see your car on custom offsets. Have you found any of those photos?
I have not yet.
Okay. We'll take a pause and we'll find those photos. We'll be right back. And we're back. All right. So we got your pictures loaded up here. Tell me what we're looking at.
This was the initial strip down of the motor.
Okay.
Before we pulled it the first time.
Mm-hmm. If you want me to move, just
to
tell
pull
me,
a motor, you gotta strip all the stuff out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just the photo of it right before it came out.
Okay.
This is it out of the car.
Yep. Got your power steering pump over here.
Yep, I left the power steering
reservoir.
pump and everything connected and just put them off to the side with hangers.
Yep. Just move the crap out of the way.
Just moved it out of the way so that way I could pull the motor, dress the motor, and put it back in.
Yep. Makes sense. It's pretty common practice, right?
Yeah.
What is going on here? I see a hammer. And is that the top of the
My
engine?
eyes aren't that great. Oh, that is the top of the motor once it was fully stripped down.
Okay.
There's just happens to be a hammer on it.
Nice. All right.
This is the motor the night I finished dressing it.
Okay. Nice.
It's the backside showing the external and the VF48,
Cool.
as well as the ported throttle body.
Nice.
This is it, ready to go in the car with the. I went with the ACT HDSS Super Street clutch.
Okay.
It's a pretty aggressive clutch. It took like 3,000 miles to break in.
Of just like daily
I had to
traffic driving.
abuse
Yeah.
the clutch.
Beating on it sometimes, like just.
My
letting
buddy
it-
has an 05, and his took 10,000 miles to fully break in.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
And these clutches are just known to have really long break-in times.
New flywheel, refinished flywheel.
Refinished flywheel.
Okay. Nice. Going back in, I take it.
This is it going back in. It wouldn't have been possible if my buddy one didn't let me do it at his house, and a
Okay.
different buddy lent me the
Engine
engine
crane.
hoist and the
Nice.
stand. So I was able to do everything that weekend because my turbo had the seals had finally gone, and I couldn't keep driving it that way.
Right. Yeah. It was like do or die time.
Yeah, it was do or die time, and I was so lucky it happened near my buddy's house. So I was like, "Hey, can I come park it there and fix it?"
Yeah.
And he was like, "Yeah, that's fine. When do you want to come down?" I was like, "The long weekend."
Yeah. Definitely. Just get it out of there and get it done.
Yeah.
You know.
And luckily, he was super cool about it. He had a 04 STI
Okay.
with all the bolt-ons I was putting on it, and he let me borrow it while my car was down.
That's badass.
Yeah, so I got to drive that for a couple of days. The thing was super fun.
What a good pal. I
Yeah,
dig
he's a
the
good
shit out
guy.
of
He's
that.
actually the one who fabricated the custom front mount that we ended up putting on it.
Yep.
Unfortunately, I never got any photos of the front mount on the car.
Yeah.
Besides the car being totaled, showing the custom
The smashed up front mount
Yeah.
on the driver's side. That
because
sucks ass.
the front mount was a very last minute thing. When
Mm-hmm.
we were putting the motor in, we were still planning on going top mount.
Right.
And I think we fired it up first time with the top mount on it.
Yep.
But we were going through his attic looking for something, and there just happened to be a front mount kit up there.
Okay. That's pretty random stuff to just have laying around, but
Not really. Us Subaru people, we hoard parts.
oh, I get it. I'm a Scion guy.
Yeah.
I totally get it.
We have parts everywhere. We have doubles, triples of everything because
Yeah, you never know.
they break.
They do break. They definitely
It happens.
break. But
Cars break.
there's readily available parts for the most part.
Exactly.
Some rare stuff you can still get. Like,
Yeah.
can make it
And
interesting.
you got to know who to ask, what groups to be in to get the rare stuff. But
Absolutely.
it's definitely doable.
Yeah,
definitely
it certainly
doable.
is. I've found that with my stuff too. I've often said that, like, I just kind of want the parts that other Scion people have, and I'm really friends with a lot of Subaru people because, like, you're a Subaru guy.
Yeah.
Gabe's a Subaru guy. I left this fan on, so that sounds horrible. I'm going to shut that off. But yeah, like, one of our other coworkers is actually two of our coworkers are Subaru guys. Like, it's, you know, it's a thing that a lot of people enjoy. I get it to a degree. I don't get it in other places. Obviously, you know how I feel about boxer engines.
You and the boxer motors.
Yeah, I mean, I just, that's it right there.
I mean, I get it. I do, but
It's not the same.
it's not the same.
But we meet on track. That's okay.
Yep.
It's cool. It's fun. You
It's
know,
fun.
that's how we see eye to eye anyway.
Yeah.
Like, I feel the same way about
They're
modifying
machines made to do exactly what you want them to do, exactly when they're supposed to do it.
stuff. Yeah.
And that's my big problem with new cars
Right.
is you gotta drive them like almost like you're not fully paying attention
Right.
because the car wants to do too much for you.
They're making cars that are trying to do everything
Yeah, and it's just
versus you used to buy cars that did one thing really well.
and you have to pay attention to all the other things and be fully aware and
Exactly.
coherent all the time. Not, oh, I can just put it on cruise control and just halfway hold the wheel and it's fine.
And it brakes for me. It changed lanes
It
for me.
brakes for me, make sure I stay in the lane, like
It's allowing for more distractions
Yeah.
instead of
taking them away, which is what it was originally aimed at.
yeah. And you know, if that was, even if it wasn't aimed at that, if it was just a consequence of having to actually be present while you're driving a vehicle, like, I think that's important. I think some people are very bad at driving, and so some of these safer cars are good for them, but it's also an enabler.
Yeah,
So-
because they don't ever have to get better at driving. They just
Right.
continue to be bad.
And then we just get worse and worse drivers.
Exactly.
The cars aren't perfect. We know this. They're
Yeah.
certainly not perfect. And when they do have problems, like, it becomes a big issue for a lot of people because they all have it.
Yeah.
So that's why we see the spike among so many manufacturers for recalls of various parts, because they're a lot of times standardized parts in the industry, and when one has a problem, they all do. It's kind of like the banana thing. Like, they're all clones, so if, like,
Exactly.
they actually got a pathogen or something that affected them, they'd all just die.
Yeah,
Which is
exactly.
kind of fucking crazy, if you ask me.
It is. It really is.
Well, you showed me something earlier that I think we could probably highlight because I've never seen this before, and it would have been sick to have these with the Brembos, especially.
It would have been super cool. It would have made the disassembly that I just had to do on jack stands in the yard way easier because I could have just twisted them off. But I saw this thing earlier today. They're called dry brake fittings.
Dry brake fittings. Let's check this out. See if it'll load.
This is the rhythm of the
And so what I gather from the video is that they are brake fittings like normal, but they slide and click together.
Right. So this is almost like the... what do they call it? It's not a... I just talked about it with Gabe in episode 12, but in the KDSS system, or the X-ray system, there's basically, they almost look like AN fittings, and there's a check valve.
Yeah,
And they come apart, and now the system's contained.
exactly.
So, similar idea, but with brake fluid, which
Exactly.
is awesome, especially if you have a track car. Like,
It makes it so much easier, especially if you're running like something even bigger than your standard Brembo, like a 6.4 setup.
right? Yeah,
Having what most people run as a front caliper as your rear caliper.
exactly.
And then just having an absolute dinner plate in the front as
Yeah.
a brake.
Like almost a whole ass wheel.
It having quick disconnect lines makes it easier because those lines are getting really, really hot. and they're losing their integrity, especially if you're
Pull
on
that
a.
closer to your face, if you can.
Now as close as it goes, I'll scooch up.
Anyway, you were saying having those for the track
Having
car.
those for a track car, it makes it easier because you're losing all that structural integrity every time it warms up and cools down and warms
Exactly.
up and cools down. You can switch out brake lines to help minimize brake fade as much as you can, but it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, if you could preload your brakes, this would be the quick change version of like what Ford did. You know, they showed it in Ford versus Ferrari, but during Le Mans when they had the GT40, they swapped out the whole assembly because they were
Exactly.
having brake fade problems.
Exactly, because
And-
brake fade is a real problem.
Yeah, totally. It's one of the biggest things you overcome when you're trying to go fast because, you know, anyone can accelerate, but it's
the
decelerating
slowing down and cornering.
and re-accelerating that makes for a good driver. I mean, you look at, you know, guys like Max and Checo, like they're crazy.
They are. They really are.
Seeing how shittily they've been treating Checo after all the things that he's done to ensure that Max has won races is driving me up a wall.
It really feels like a backhanded thank you. Like, hey, thanks for doing all this. Now screw you.
Right, like a guy who's been
not
on
our
the
problem.
he's been on an ascendancy. I'm gonna beat this dead horse until people actually get it. Like his entire career, he's gotten better and better and better and better. Why the hell would you prevent him from being the first Mexican? Am I right? To win
The first Mexican
the
to
drivers'
win
championship
the driver's champion.
in a Red Bull car, where they're trying to appeal to North America. They're coming into the United States,
And
like.
above all that, why would you try and stint your drivers from doing better? Yeah, sure, it hurts the other driver, but he didn't even want to move over so that way they could both be 1 and 2 in the points championship.
Yeah, exactly. Like, let him pass you in one race so he can ensure second place for the Drivers' Championship, like, over Ferrari. who
Yeah, because
they've
then,
been fighting all year.
then it makes it Red Bull first.
Totally first. Like, they
Like,
already...
no questions asked.
Yeah.
Red Bull is number 1 in F1.
Now there's doubts, and it was based on poor tire strategy and just not prioritizing Checo at all. Even like when he struggled in races, they could have done things to help him out, to advance him through the field that they just didn't. And he didn't always perform to the highest of his abilities. He probably had some bad days, I imagine.
But everybody has bad days.
And on his best day, he's easily, I think, if not the best, he's in the conversation for the best
He's
driver.
definitely in the conversation.
For Formula
Always in
One
the
right now.
conversation.
Like, it's always changing, but just from what I've seen from him, like some of the passes he made when he drove for Racing Point, when he passed, I think it was his own teammate. He passed, and they were wheel to wheel coming around this corner, and I swear to you, there was only an inch or two of actual space between their tires.
And people don't realize how fast they're actually going.
No.
They're going double, triple highway speeds in the corners.
Right. And he took this corner probably at just over 100 miles an hour, like
Exactly.
3-digit mile an hour, and he's an inch or two away from his teammate and doesn't touch him and passes him fluidly and continues on.
That takes a lot of skill because people don't realize they have to go through the same G training that like astronauts have to go through because
Right.
they're literally being slammed with 4 Gs
Yeah. Or going
2 Gs.
4 Gs, cornering, accelerating, decelerating. It's all over the place. It's not like, okay, now you're going forward, now you're going back, now you're going right, now you're going left. It's like you're all over the place, and you have to be strong in every aspect because you're literally holding the wheels of that thing and making it go, and you have to put it there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so much coordination.
You are an extension of the machine at that point. You're just another part doing what you're supposed to be doing. And if you don't do what you're supposed to do, the consequences are bad.
They are very bad. We
They're
saw
very
it
bad.
with Grosjean often when he was on the Haas team. He
We saw it quite often from him when he was on Haas.
just smashing into stuff all the time. But yeah, I mean, I hope Checo takes it. That would be really cool for Red Bull. And honestly, if their plans are to replace him after this season or next, like having one under the belt saying, okay, you got the championship, now play ball with Max because they want him to have such and such certain number. I'd be okay with that. I don't know if he would be. And if he's not, he should go to another team and kick Red Bull's ass.
Yeah.
That should be his attitude because he's that good.
He is. He truly is that good.
And if he was put in another team's car and he was the priority driver, I don't see why he couldn't be fighting with Max for the front line.
Surpassing him.
Right. And, maybe that's what Ferrari needs. Or Aston Martin,
Because Ferrari, they're amazing in practice, but it's something about the actual race that's like they get all choked up and they don't perform.
Yeah, I think Charles does choke a lot. He's literally crashed out of the blue from the lead of races over and over again. And that's not to knock him as a driver because he is a very talented driver.
He's a very talented driver.
He gets in his own head, I think, and it's kind of hard to watch because he just self-destructs.
Yeah,
and
it's understandable in a way because you're racing for millions of dollars.
And you're wearing Ferrari.
And you're wearing Ferrari. Like, you're a big red target. Everyone wants to be like, I passed Ferrari.
Yeah, and not only that, you're super young and you've been through a shitload of stuff in the past couple of years of your life, 5 years, whatever. And he was really thrust into that position mostly because of the traumatic shit that happened to him. So it's like probably what I would think is like a love-hate relationship with what he does because every day it reminds him of why he's
doing it.
Yeah, like why he's so upset, but also why he has to do it and why he loves it so much. And it's just like mind-blowing to me that he's in that position. But I hope this season yields some good results for Red Bull at the least, but ideally Checo would be at the top of the
I'm
list.
excited for this next upcoming season because there's a couple of new names in the mix that they were there last year, but they weren't even in any conversation no matter what.
Yeah, they were very often in the midfield or towards the back, and
the midfielders are starting to come up a little bit more. I think next year is going to be very interesting.
It'll be a tight field for sure.
100% is going to be a very tight field.
Be nice to see some people get challenged.
Yeah,
for once.
I feel that F1 happens to be like growing a little bit of popularity stateside now.
Definitely, they got 3 races coming here.
They have races coming here. It's doing good in what's it called? Netflix.
Yep, Netflix is
they have a
it.
series. There's more pop culture movies that are made by American filming companies about F1.
Yep, they had that one about Niki Lauda, and they had a Schumacher. I think it was a documentary.
It was like a docu-series, I believe.
Yeah, that was really cool. I think more of that would be cool, like to see the McLaren, Honda, Senna days where they just crushed it.
I wish there was more motorsports other than the obvious NASCAR shown in America.
Yeah.
Because, like,
WRC.
let's take the car behind you.
Yeah.
That car and the Legacy and the GC8 were very big on bringing rally to America.
Right.
Which introduced the introduction of the WRX in 2002 stateside when they've been making them all throughout the 90s.
Right, exactly.
In Japan.
So we didn't have them for the longest time.
We didn't have, which goes with almost everything, unfortunately. We don't have all of the cool Japanese spec vehicles.
Right.
We have USDM, and emissions is a huge reason on a lot of that.
Of course.
US emissions is really hard to pass.
Yeah, it is.
Just because of the environmental safety.
Right, yes,
if you will.
Yeah. Environmental safety, I'm sure, is the number one priority. It's not taxes and control. You were telling me something crazy about USDM Subarus that they, on a certain model, or I don't know if it's all models, they're starving one cylinder in order to maintain those numbers.
Yeah, they need like a cylinder for cooling mod and parallel fuel rails to run better because the cylinder that's closest to the firewall on the passenger side, the way the factory fuel lines are set up, it's not always getting the most optimal amount of fuel.
Okay.
So by replacing that with parallel fuel lines, it makes the car run better. However, it makes you automatically fail emissions.
Okay, so you fail emissions, but your engine is probably more reliable and it runs better.
And you can't really push any kind of power out of them without going parallel.
Of course, yeah, because if you're starving a cylinder, it's going to be so unreliable.
If you upgrade the injectors, it literally starts to starve. I had to upgrade mine because the 1050s was too much for the stock fuel system, and it was starting to lean out on the top end.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. You can't control it because you're limited on your mechanical ability there.
You're maxing out the part at that point.
Exactly. So you need a better part. And yeah, like they have such a bad rap for being unreliable, but in Japan, do they have those problems? Like,
yes and no. They still do exist, but they are a lot less than here.
Right. Okay.
Because a handful of the problems are caused by USDM emissions equipment.
Gotcha.
And then another thing that we don't get from Japan is the EJ207. They had multiple versions of it, but the version 7 was the semi-closed deck version, meaning you could get a semi-closed deck motor from the factory.
Right.
That's capable of well over 400.
If people don't know what a closed deck or a semi-closed deck is, if you look at a engine block without the head on it, you'll see the cylinder where the piston goes, and then outside of that, you'll see what are called water jackets. And basically, when you have a semi-closed, they fill in some of the area, usually in the OEM and really high-performance aftermarket stuff with other metal material. It's super common to put, like, concrete in there or whatever, especially for drag racing and stuff. That's not really what I would want. I'd probably want like a block girdle or something that presses in place, like cylinder support system. But anyway, they add metal material around that cylinder to make it stronger at the top of the cylinder where all the combustion happens. So that way, you know, when you can push those higher numbers and you don't warp the cylinder in the process and have things go catastrophically wrong.
Exactly. And with most things, head lifting is a big issue, but with Subarus, which, you blew your head gaskets, that's so much more notorious because there are two heads on it.
Right, exactly.
Because the engine is completely parallel.
It's a 4-cylinder with twice the likelihood of the head gasket actually going bad because there's two of them
because
instead
there
of
are
one.
Two head gaskets on one 4-cylinder motor.
Right, like a lot of V6s have head gasket problems as well because there's twice as many.
Because there's twice as many. When they split them up like that, you essentially double your chances of having a head gasket issue.
Yeah, it's just a simple thing, and obviously, you know, there's other reasons like the material that they used for some of these head gaskets.
The whole head gasket thing is usually seen as a non-turbo issue because the non-turbo ones are made out of an almost felt-like material.
Yeah, like a cork or felt type thing.
They're really
almost.
Not great from factory.
Yeah.
But the turbo ones factory are MLS or multi-layer steel.
Yep, that's what I have in my car for a factory head gasket as well. And so far, the one that actually fits properly has held up pretty well. So I'll take that. I said a while ago that I'd be monitoring my coolant and oil situation. It doesn't look like I'm getting any extra oil beyond what maybe was residual in there because it's in a low concentration right now. So I have hope that maybe I fixed it. I just need to get rid of the rest of the crap that's in there.
I do think that there's just a lot of oil left in there from just motor gear discrepancy, putting the wrong head gasket in.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And just it's washing the residual out still.
Yeah, which is fine. I mean, I can get coolant. I can flush it. I'm willing to flush it and clean it out as much as I need to. Obviously, when I go full build, I'll probably do new parts like new radiator, but I'll flush the heater core.
Yeah,
I'll fix it.
Yeah,
the right way.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. But for now, like it's not hurting anything at the moment, so I'll probably get around to it.
There's not enough for it to be deemed an issue.
As people know if they saw the short about my new parts, I'm more concerned about the suspension at the moment. I'm gonna build some coilovers out of some KYB XLG struts and see how those go. I'm not sure if it's gonna work well or not, but we'll try it out.
Yeah, the KYB GR, or what they've now been renamed as the XLG struts, are really nice struts. KYB actually was the OEM supplier of the '05 to '07 STI coilovers.
Okay.
So from the factory, you could get OEM coilovers. They didn't have any camber adjustment or dampening,
Okay.
but they were ride height adjustable.
Gotcha. See if I can find a picture of these. What year did you say?
Actually, I think I have a photo right here.
Would
that
this
I
be
can
one of them?
Forward. So the one over is the regular STI pink strut.
Okay. Sorry,
Which
I'll find something on here. Don't worry about it. Talk me through this.
So this one is the STI pink strut. These came on the STIs with the pink spring, if you will, which is a decently well-known term. Pink springs, meaning they're a little bit shorter than factory. They're the STI shorter springs, which help you adjust your ride height to be a little bit lower.
Sure, yeah.
Lower center of gravity helps us the geometry and everything.
Yeah, TRD offered something for my car like that I think was made by Eibach. They were red, but TRD red, of course.
Yeah, and the KYB ones were cherry blossom pink, which is Subaru's color. Unfortunately, here we get the navy blue emblems and
Okay.
things like that, but the earlier emblems were cherry blossom red, which is just a pink color, if you will.
Let's see. See anything that looks like the right thing?
No, and that's the thing, is they're so rare.
You can't even find them up on Google.
They're so hard to find. The only photos I have is actually I put an inquiry out before I totaled my car for some, and someone had actually responded to me with a fully rebuilt set.
Okay. Well, I'll throw those photos in here. We don't have to dwell on it too much, but yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes. You know, these are going to be little interesting things. They're ground control coilovers. I took a picture. At one point, they're just adjustable and, like you said, ride height. So similar idea, just adapting it for my purposes, I guess. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much everything about Scarlet. You know, and your love of Subarus. Obviously,
Yeah.
we'll see where you're at once you've been in.
Yeah, and I already
down
have some things in the works.
Okay. Well, I look forward to finding out. I
that-
think it's going to be cool to see what you can do with a nice clean car that you can build.
I'm excited because even the ones that are being posted with rust problems, it's cleaner than the cleanest car I can find up here.
Of course, because it's a Florida car.
And they don't know how to fix it.
Yeah. They don't come from...
They don't come from rust. They don't know how to fix rust. They see rust, they freak out.
Yeah.
I see ones all the time that getting parted out over a U-frame, which, if you don't know what a U-frame is, it's a piece of frame that's shaped in a U that bolts underneath the motor to hold everything square and true. When those start to rot, yes, it is a bit of a process because those bolts do like to snap.
Sure.
But you got to know how to drill them out. You got to know how to torch them out. And
That's not something they're familiar with.
it's not
down
something
there.
that they're really familiar with down there. They kind of just are like, that's out of our wheelhouse. Sorry.
Yeah, we're not really looking to do that kind of a repair. We'd rather just get something cleaner because there's a million cleaner cars around.
Exactly.
So they'll just go that route. Well, while you're down there, do me a favor and just keep your eye out for an X-Runner for me.
I will.
Because I am big into the X-Runners, and Speedway Blue and Black Sand Pearl are
Getting
the
a
two
new
colors.
X-Runner for you would be super cool.
I'd love to do a roadkill video of going down to Florida and
That would be super cool.
picking it up and driving it home.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a lot of fun. But yeah, this is my buddy Skip. He's big into Subies. If you want any rare parts, this guy's the shit.
I can find them for you.
He's big in the community. He can find them. I promise. He found me parts for my Scion that I couldn't find, and he will scour. He will scour for it. So, but yeah, I think that's been the Modcast's second interview. So congratulations.
Hell yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Sweet.
Sounds good. All right. Have a good night. I'm a dumbass. I forgot to ask you. What's your socials? Do you want people to come check out your build?
603.blob on Instagram.
All right. There it is, folks. Have a good night.